Hello! Before we start, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we live, create, and learn on today, paying respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Always a fun time going live, and always a fun time with Anika. How are you doing today, Anika?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Johanna?
That's good. I'm doing great. We are, of course, here back again for part two of your series, doing a bit of mock-ups today. And we'll do a quick recap of what we did last stream as well. But just to reiterate, this is part two of a new series that we're doing here on Adobe Live APAC. So doing a Let's Get Started series, which is a little bit more introductory, beginner level kind of work and showing off all the creative apps and creative things that you can do with the Adobe suite. So, without further ado, let's get started.
Yeah, let's do it. I don't know if you guys have been here before, but if you did not join us for part one, my name is Anika. I'm a brand designer and an illustrator. I work with small businesses and I even do commission illustrations. This is my Behance profile. You can check some of my work out over here. You can also go ahead and check out some of my links. I also live stream on Behance weekly. So if you've ever just around Behance, hey, come say hi. I go live every Friday. So you can check that out. This is my Instagram. You can check most of my 36 days of type is starting this week. It did start actually. You can check out some of my work over here as well. But let's dive into what we're doing today. So
Fantastic.
yeah, we're working on a visual identity for a pizza place. It's called Ben's Pizzeria. We started off with a brief last time around, so I'm going to go through it over once again today. So let's just dive into it. Let's see what it is. So we were talking a little bit about the story and where it came from, and it is basically the fact that Ben, which is me, I'm the client over here. I wanted to provide the artisan pizzas to people of New York, so I decided to make this pizzeria a place where you can come chime and eat however you want, and you can even have pineapples on your pizza, and you can come in, fold your pizza, eat it with a fork and knife. It's all your call, but it's also an eaten place where you feel comfortable and it's fun and dynamic. And the brief was to create a visual identity for the place, and which has like a fresh and youthful take on it. We did incorporate some of the dynamic illustrations we talk about over here. Let's dive into attributes and then we can go in and check those out. We are local, we're authentic, we are youthful and sophisticated. All of these really impact how you create everything in the brand identity. So the target audience is basically late 20s to mid 30s, and that essentially impacts the tone of voice that we have for the brand, which means that I'm going to be using puns in my language. And we have a tagline which says where dough matters. So that's something that
Mhm.
can be really catchy. Um, we have some deliverables over here. I may or may not finish all of these on stream, but I will definitely try to finish these later on. So you can check that out later. But let's go. This is basically, I set it up here as a design brief for myself to just have like a guideline where to go, where you're actually working with the client. So you should ideally have all the deliverables when you're trying to work with the client. So it's a good idea to ask them and also create milestones of when you're gonna submit some of these work and get it done for approval.
Mm.
And since we are talking about that, it's also great to have, like, if you're working as a freelance, it's also great to have like a contract in place to know when you're going to submit and what for approval and who's the stakeholder and all the good stuff. Um, and yeah, we have some type inspiration here. I wanted it to be really fun and scripty when I was going with the fun dynamic. But I feel like these are really fun for like something like, hey, we're open, come hang out. We have some color inspiration here. We talked about that last time, and yeah, let's go into Illustrator without further ado.
Fantastic. And just before we do that, I do want to say hello to everyone in the chat. Let's scroll up to make sure that I get everyone. We have Manny, we have Randall, we have Flynn, of course, taking care of us as the chat mod today. We have Frank, we have Rob, we have Struffy. We also have
Nice.
Mikul and Jessica. I
Love
believe
it.
that is it. Yes,
Hey,
hello,
welcome.
everyone. And of course, Feel free to post any questions, big or small. We'll do our best to
Hmm.
answer them all in the chat. And also be sure that if you want to submit questions and take part in the conversation, to tune in on behance.net/live. This is also streaming to YouTube, but Behance is the chat that we are looking at and where we'll get our questions from. So hang
Yeah.
out over there.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, just to get started in and to give a quick recap, we have these sketches that I did not end up using, but it's always a great idea to have like a ton of sketches done out first because you get out the bad concepts and then you finally land on something that someone else has not already created. Because as a creative, I feel like the first 10 or the 20 or 30 ideas that you get are already something that's been done when it comes to either logo design or illustration. So it's a good idea to have it out there. We talked a little bit about the golden circle and how you can implement it in your design. And then we ended up doing this. So this was like a version that I created when we were live, but I went back and I thought that it's not as wavy as I wanted it to be. So I went back ahead, and since this was live, I went to my
Ooh.
properties panel right here, and I see that it applied a warp twist to it. I can just go over here, click on it, and change the values from right here. It's at 20% right now. I wonder what this was. We can just go check in at 7%. So basically, more than double that. Um,
Nice.
and I kind of like the look of it. It's very funky in a way, but I don't know. It's just somehow works. We talked about the color versions, and these are the old ones. I did not update them just to show you how it looks. These are the ones that I already had in place because I wanted to go with a very sophisticated look. I
Mm.
changed that when we talked about colors and contrast and accessibility. So these were the ones with the highest accessibility, and I could actually read the text on it, even though it's the smallest size as well. And then we went ahead over here. We created some full logo lockups in color. So we used some of our primary and secondary colors, and even this one on a white background. Not exactly white, not quite white. We did this one, and these are the updated ones. So this is like the final logo. You can see if I hover on it, it is still live, and
Mm.
that's because I just want to keep it live as it's just non-destructive way of working. I just want to keep it live as long as I'm not exporting it. And if you're sending it to a client or sending it to a printer, make sure to like outline every single text
Mm-hmm.
and check for like strokes. And because basically if you have like a stroke, for instance, I have this guy, I have like a rectangle. Also, are my shortcuts not working? They're not working. That's so weird. Anyway, let's get into this. We have like this guy over here. I'm just increasing the stroke size, but if I scale it down, if I have scale strokes turned off right now, but I can go
Mm-hmm.
ahead and check it from my section. Oh, where are you?
And
So
scale
this,
strokes just means that when you're resizing,
yeah.
whether it is text or an object, it will um, be the same width of the stroke the entire time, or
Mhm.
it will adapt and change. So it's smaller the
Exactly.
smaller the size it is.
Exactly. And if you're working with logo design, you don't really want that, and you just want everything to be consistent. And
Mm-hmm.
so it is always recommended to expand every single effect that you have. So as you can see here, it is live. I'm going to go ahead and click on expand appearance. It's going to expand the appearance, but this is not still outlined. So I can just either go here, right click and click on outlines, or go to type, select it and go to type and click on create outlines, or command shift O if you're working on a Mac. And if I ever use command in the shortcuts, then I'm saying it's basically control on Windows. And if I say option, it's basically alt on Windows device. Um, but yeah, we have some of these. I'm going to talk about libraries now, real quick. I have some of these groups. I don't know if you guys have ever worked with libraries. Let me know in the chat. Libraries are a very fun way if you want to integrate your design into other apps. Let's say you're making a brand presentation in InDesign and you really want to bring in the brand elements. It's always fun to have these assets loaded in the library so that you can like easily access them and use it everywhere across the Creative Cloud. So what I'm gonna do is basically get these logos in. I have these various versions of the logo. I have this folder right here, which is called Logo Full Lockup. Basically means that I have the logo type as well as the secondary text or the slogan that goes with it. In this case, it is pizzeria and bar, which is the secondary text. I'm gonna group these two just so that it remains the same For now, I'm going to keep it live. It doesn't matter because I'm not exporting anything. We're going to talk about that in a second. I'm going to click this plus icon right here that you can see. We have this plus icon that says add elements. I can click on add graphic and it immediately adds it. Now you can see it's not grouped. I can just go right in and group it and just like drag it in.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, it's always fun to have like segregation. So I did make subfolders in between. There's a vertical logo, a color logo, and a black and white.
Mm.
Let me just drag this to color because that's what we have here. And then this one is also the same. I can just click and drag it inside this as well. So that also works. Do you use a lot of libraries, Rana?
Well, starting now, I'm going to use them a lot more. I've never seen it. Maybe I just looked at it when it wasn't the latest updated version, because my mind is actually quite blown right now by how easy it is to then just export and have your
Yeah.
brand assets in any document.
Yeah, and then you can just share your library with the clients. You can see that there's like this plus icon. You can invite them to library and you can just invite your, oh, didn't want to do that. But you can invite your clients to the libraries and it's going to work out really well.
Excellent.
So it gives you like this option where you can give invite access to people, edit access, and that's how it works. Live
Fantastic.
things.
I love that the apps are becoming so much more collaborative. Lately, it's really fun. It makes things easier for designers and clients to work together as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one quick way to add your color swatches to your libraries, there's basically a default where we can just go and select fill color and it's going to add it here. But another quick way is to select all of these and click on this group little icon which create like a color group in your swatches panel. So I'm going to do that right here. I'm going to click on this group and select it just color group 2. That's the default name. We have this guy and then we have this handy dandy little button which says add selected swatches and color groups to my current library, which is basically the library where I'm exporting all this stuff. So I have this group selected. This is basically it selected and I click on this guy and then wait, what happened? Must have a minimum. So basically, yes, that's great actually that this came up. We actually have a limitation when adding color groups to libraries. You can add up to 1 and 5 colors. So let's just go ahead and make like another group with like secondary and primary colors. I'm going to delete these from here and make 2 groups instead. So let me do that real quick. I'm gonna delete these. Now I have 2 groups and I can easily import it the same way that I did. I'm gonna select this guy and ta-da! We have group 1 and this guy again, group 2.
Group 2.
Yeah, and then I can just go ahead, find my color group right here. Colors, there's primary and secondary. We have these guys. These are not segregated, but just for ease, like just for showing it to you as just done it the faster way. But obviously this is not, oh, my colors got messed up, but that's fine. That's okay. I have extra colors. Always great to save copies.
Yes.
But if you don't have them, you can just color pick from these files. In this case, I'm going to show you a very neat eyedropper tool. I bet you guys did not know this, but it's really handy for new users because there's this eyedropper tool right here. You can double click it and look at all of these options. So if you're working with character styles and even like color fills and strokes, you can go ahead and copy the properties and appearances of one to another. So I press I on the keyboard and I have this guy which is color filled this. I can just option click or alt click if you're on a Windows device and it will just grab this color. Let me just zoom in real quick.
Yeah.
And get it. So I'm just basically dragging it, clicking it, basically filling the pipette tool, like the eyedropper tool with the color and then putting it somewhere else.
Oh, that's wonderful. This seems like the way it should always be done.
Yeah, right?
Wow, fantastic. We do have our first question from Rob, just to go back a little bit to workspace. So the question is, do you use a custom workspace or is there one you find more useful for this kind of layout?
I do have a custom workspace, but for the ease of the, as you can see, it's my name here. But
Mhm.
just because I wanted this to be accessible for everyone, I just put like something that's just by default available. So the Essential Classic, I did modify it with like artboards. I find that having artboards on the side really helps me to export. So when I'm exporting, I can just go. So basically, when I talk about exporting stuff, you have to export it for both print and web. So for web, I'll do an RGB print, which is the file that I'm in. I go to export and click on export for screens. This
Mhm.
dialog box pops up. And now, as you can see, all these artboards are named according to what I named them in
Yeah.
the file over here in the artboards panel. And that's going to help you. There's a lot of ways to export stuff from Illustrator, but this is really handy if you have stuff on artboard specifically. I have the full lockup, I have the color lockup, I have this guy, then I have some colors. Let's just export these just for now, just to see how that
Mhm.
looks. I will choose a location. Let me just do that real quick on the side. I'm gonna save that on the desktop. So let's do that. RGB export. I just made a folder for it right here, and then I'm gonna choose it. I do have the option of PNG and JPEG. If you want
Mhm.
transparency in your exports, you can choose PNG, but in this case, JPEG
Yeah.
is fine because this is one to one. If you're actually exporting for RGB, it's okay to export something as big as really just 600 pixels, because maybe these are just used for social media assets, and it's okay
Mm.
to not go so big with them. If you are using something like this logo on web, you might want to export like an SVG. We'll talk about that in just a second. I do that and I click on export button. Then I can go ahead and browse to my desktop, and we will see real quick that we have everything here. Everything's named really nicely, and we have all the exports right here.
Fantastic.
So hey, easy as that.
Right. Yeah. We
And
did just when we were chatting before the stream,
mhm,
talk a little bit about all the things we can talk about, because I feel with Illustrator, much like other programs, there is so much that you can learn and do. But something that
absolutely.
we did want to mention and cover in relation to libraries is patterns.
Yeah,
I'm
let's
wondering
dive
if
into
you want
it.
to handle that now.
Yeah, let's dive into it. I'm just trying to find this really quick. Get this in so that we can just use it on a mockup later on. Give me a second. I'm just clicking and dragging so that it's just like, oh, sorry. Did I actually mess it up? Oh, I messed it up. You gotta select it all, you guys. You gotta select it all. Anyway, so you select it all if it's ideally grouped, and then you
Mm.
just drag it in. It's all good. You click and drag, and then you have everything selected. All right, let's dive into patterns. As you can see, I do have something going on here, but I want to make a pattern with these illustrations. There's multiple ways to do it. I'm going to put this on the side when we talk about patterns. I did make these illustrations that we talked about yesterday. I'm just going to paste it right over here, and now the keyboard shortcuts are working again, so you can basically see it right over here whenever
Fantastic.
I
Yeah, I did
press.
notice that.
Yeah. So let's just make something that is just like this by default. So I'm just gonna use this very simple. Keep this here. I'm gonna group everything and scale it down. I can go to object, pattern, and make. That's one way to do it. And you have this panel right here, which gives you the pattern options. You can choose the tile type over here. So it's selected grid by default, but you can do brick by row, brick by column. And as you can see, there's a live preview of everything that I'm doing. So you can select whichever one you like, and then you can scale it down as well. Once you are happy with what you have created, you can click on done, and you can see it on the swatches panel. It appears as a pattern right over here. So whenever I create a new shape, I can just select this guy and there's a pattern. Hey.
Fantastic.
But there is another way to do it, which is actually very easy as compared to this guy, because sometimes it's difficult to navigate the pattern maker. You can go to object, repeat, and click on grid. Once I click on it, it is an automatic view right here. You can bring it up, you can increase the size as big as you want. And if you want to scale, still edit it, you can just double click into it and scale it up or down. That's how simple it is. So
Wow.
we have these two options. Now you may wonder, how about making the tiles change? You have grid type over here as well. You can change the repeat options over here. I can mess around with like the space If you look closely, it's actually making a difference over here. I'm gonna
Okay.
go back and change it to 10, let's say. And then we have the grid type. We have the grid. We have this option which says brick by row, brick by column, and the default was grid, which was also the case with patterns. I do brick by row, I do brick by column. Let's just do brick by row. I feel like it's getting a little complicated here, very crammed
Mhm.
up. We'll try to see how we can fix that. We have flip vertical. Oh no, didn't want to do that. And this is something that works sometimes, but maybe not necessarily in every case. I kind of like this. It's kind of trippy because you can't really tell what's going on.
Yeah.
That's the trick with patterns, because you don't want it to be obviously repeating.
Mm.
So that's something to keep in mind for sure. Okay, I'm just gonna go with this for now and not use a lot of time here. So let's go back here and use this guy. And I can also keep like a copy of this guy or just keep it expanded. I can just
Mm.
keep it on the side for reference purposes. I'm gonna select it and go to object and click on expand. One thing to remember when you're using grids is that it automatically creates a clipping mask. So if you try to actually
Okay.
move in something here, you see I'm in isolation mode. I double click on this.
I
I can
see.
see that there's like a clipping mask applied to it automatically. I hit escape and I come out of it and it's not there anymore. So basically that's how a clipping mask works. I have like a shape over here. That's like the pattern that I created. Let me change the
Mhm.
swatch to something else. Let's use this
We
color.
got a comment here from Rob saying, "I want a pair of socks with that pattern." I couldn't agree
Oh,
more.
merch.
Um,
Yeah.
and also, hello to new people who have joined us. Also, of course, to Anna. Nice to see you in chat. And
Yeah.
a reminder that if you have any questions about what we're doing today, uh, pop them in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just giving a brief overview of what clipping masks are. If you have never used clipping masks, I have a rectangle, a square, sorry, or rectangle squares. No, they're not. But I have a square right here. I have an ellipse. I'm gonna select these two, and I can just right click and make clipping mask. It's essentially just clipping to the pixels underneath that are visible.
Mhm.
So this is like the shape that is gonna act as a mask underneath whatever it is in here. So this can actually be a smaller shape as well. I'm going to select these two and right click and click make clipping mask, and only the part that is visible inside the circle is visible. I can double click. I can make this larger, and as you can see, there's a live preview of how much of the square is visible, right? So yeah, that's what clipping masks do. In this case, I'm gonna release the clipping mask and I can change it just to make it less complicated for myself,
Mhm.
or just keep it this way. Either way, it works. I'm going to drag a color underneath this guy and bring it here. So I see that some of the detail is lost in here. So let me just change the opacity and maybe like the blend mode of this. So I'm going to go to window and appearance. I have this handy dandy little pop up that came in. I am going to select my pattern that I created, which is this, and I'm going to go to opacity and I can change the blend mode of this guy. So maybe like a screen, hey, maybe like an overlay, hey, and we have a soft light here as well. I like the soft light a little more than others. I'm going to turn down the opacity, maybe like 41%, and come out of it. And maybe I can just overlay like the logo on top just to show you how it works. If
Yeah.
it's like a paper underneath the pizza in the box. So yeah, maybe we can use this here. And
Nice.
then we have this guy. So yeah, that's one way of using it. But as Rob mentioned, and thank you, Rob, for mentioning that, because you can use these patterns in all kinds of merchandise. Once you have like an established brand, everybody wants to get all of those patterns. So yeah,
Mhm.
make sure to like save these for like future purposes.
Yes. Amazing.
Um, yeah, so this is
When
how you can.
no, you go.
Yeah, I was just saying that this is how you can make like easily, quickly make a pattern. But I just want to dive into Photoshop first because I know we're 30 minutes in. So
Yes. Read
let's
my
dive.
mind.
Yeah, so I did do some homework and downloaded a bunch of mockups. I'm gonna go to business cards and really quickly make it because I feel like I already have that in my library, but I can just
Mhm.
also copy paste everything with like the seamless feature. All right, let's go to. I have a few business cards here. This is one. I really like this because I can overlay the mock-up in the on the paper and like the logo on the card itself.
Yeah.
There's another one which is this very fun, goes with our style. I think this might work better. And then some multi-purpose cards. So let's actually just go with this one. I'm gonna double click and open the PSD file. It's opening real quick. Photoshop is thinking. So we have these cards, and as you can see, we are in Photoshop now. If you've never used Photoshop, this is the layers panel, and if you don't see it, you can go to Windows, and everything that you have over here with the tick mark on the left is basically the panels that are already visible. If I turn it off, the layers panel disappears. If I turn it back on, it appears again. So that's how that works. This is not a mockup that I created by any means, but I can go in and explain to you how they created it. So we have like the base layer, which is color. This is the texture, and this is the background layer that we have. Then we have the design, which is basically these rectangles that are the size of the card. The US standard is 3.5 by 2 inches, so you can go ahead. That is also not the same everywhere around the world. So depending on the country that you're working in and where you're releasing the cards, you might want to check the standards for it. um, then there's design, and as you can see, this little smart object thumbnail, it's basically the non-destructive way of doing things. So even if you change something in the smart object and you scale it up and down, it doesn't lose its quality, it's lossless. Then we have some vibrance here, some light and texture, so some fun color and basically highlights and shadows, because you want to make it look realistic. Think of it
Yeah.
like illustration, where you have a flat color at the bottom and then you overlay it on top with like, hey, light is acting up on it, so you just keep the card in sunlight, how is it going to look? So imagine that, and that's how. And base, if you're just starting out, you don't need to actually create your mockups, but there's also an easy way to do it, which I'm going to touch on. Let's go to card front. I do see grids over here. I'm going to turn it off just because I don't want to see them right now. um, let's just clear it for now, and then I'm going to go to my Illustrator and copy it. So maybe I use this guy, and I'm gonna Command C and press Command V here. It's gonna ask me how I want to paste it as. I can paste it as layers, which is like the latest update after Max. I'm gonna paste it
Oh,
as a smart object in this case, because I feel like I would use layers when I'm using an illustration and trying to make textures on top of it. But in this case, I'm happy with like just a smart object. I have this guy here. Now you see this looks weird, and it's not the size of the rectangle that I have. It's because I have a clipping mask on the pizza itself, which is the illustration, and that's why it appears this way. This wouldn't have been the case had I gotten this with libraries, which I'm going to show you in just a second, just to compare how that looks. I'm going to eye it right now. Obviously, you need to go down, press enter. And the other way is to actually have this open from the libraries. So I have the libraries here. I browse to the library that I have, which is right here. And just to show you the comparison, I'm going to drag it on top here. Let's do that. And in this case,
so
it's
easy.
fitting to the size, even though this does have a clipping mask, it's still perfect. So yeah.
Is that because it's more or less copying in the artboard as opposed to the graphic
Yeah.
elements?
So it's basically because I had this as an artwork selected into the library, but in this case, I'm just copy pasting everything. So it's also copy pasting the clipping mask. Um,
Gotcha.
let's go back here and press. You can see the star button right here, star icon right here, which means that it's not saved yet, so nothing has changed in this file. But if I press Command S or Control S, it changes. Hey, we
There
have
we
something
go.
here. There's something going on here. And I can go back to Illustrator and grab like something on the back. So maybe we have like this color. I don't know if it's gonna work. We're just gonna see it. Actually, let me see if this is in the libraries, because I don't want to scale it up and down every single time. I don't think it is. Let me group that real quick. And meanwhile, if you guys have any questions, let me know.
Let's see, just looking through the chat. We did have a question, but Flynn kindly answered that one.
Nice.
Looking through. Let's see. Yes, Flynn also saying that the pattern would be a lovely pattern for the pizza box if they did takeaways. And lo and behold, pizza
Yay.
box is it too. just after this, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have, I just saved it and dragged it from the file, and there we go. We have this. But if we didn't like the green, I can just drag it also here. And it's a little bit off size. Let me size it up real quick. I'm gonna press Command S again, and ta-da, we have like
Ooh,
everything here.
nice.
So I can also go ahead and change the background color maybe if I don't like it. So I can just double click into this and like change it perhaps to something more to our liking. Yeah, that's looking good. All right, and the same way you can actually go ahead and export stuff from an Illustrator file as well. So you can quick export as PNG. You can change
Mhm.
this quick export settings, but it'll be by default for you. But you can also go to export as, and you can export and change the format. So you can change it to a JPEG. If you're uploading it to Behance, for instance, for your portfolio, I would recommend having at least 1400 pixel wide image, and also using as JPEG because it's just easier to upload and avoids a lot of issues, copyright issues later. I mean, nobody can just right click and save your file, right? They'd have to do some effort to do it.
Yeah.
So we have this one right here, but let's actually dive into. Did we say you want to do pizza boxes instead, or do you want to do one other mock-up real quick?
I reckon maybe pizza boxes, and just being mindful of time. And while you
Okay,
get set up, I
let's
might
do that.
throw another question at you. So we've got
Yeah.
a question from Rob. I noticed you have one document in RGB and one in CMYK. Do you
Hmm.
work more in one or the other?
Do you? I'm sorry, I didn't get the last part.
So do you work more often in RGB or do you work more often in CMYK?
Um, it really depends on the kind of project that I'm working in. So if it's just like a digital project and it's only going to be online, it's
Mhm.
only RGB. But if it's also print, in this case, I don't have time to go into color. But there's a lot of considerations to keep when you're printing stuff. I know Rob knows a lot about that. But if you are working with CMYK, it's not always the same color that's getting printed, which is why we have
Mm.
Pantones. So it's like a universal system where you can just mix inks and get that printed on various different kinds of paper with the guarantee that those colors won't change when you change manufacturers, or like the inks get changed, or it's a batch produce, or it's a small produce. All those things really play like in choosing what kind of document you work in. So if it's like a print document, which is in this case because I wanted to highlight, even though I'm not going to print it, I just wanted to highlight that when you're working with die lines or die cuts for any kind of packaging design, you should have your document in CMYK. So if you don't, you can go to File, Document, Color Mode, and change the color mode. In this case, I went ahead and made this die line mockup myself. I looked at a pizza box and I opened it up to actually see how that looks.
A great excuse to order pizza, I might add. Just like it's research for the stream, where it's preparing for
Yeah,
the stream is ordering pizza, and I think based on chat, I think a lot of people will be having pizza for dinner tonight
yeah,
here in
for
Australia, which
sure.
I sound this sounds like an excellent idea. I might even get two.
Yeah, so I basically have this die line here. It's basically a template where you can see that there's cuts and creases on the layers panel here. It's great to have these on separate layers when you're working with a template file
Mm,
like this. And usually you will get this from your printer or your client, whoever you're working with. So you don't need to worry about it. But there's lots of other free template websites online as well. I just chose to have this because I wanted to see for myself how that looks, and it's always a great exercise if you're bored, just to see how everything works. So all of these solid lines are basically the cuts where the die will actually cut onto the corrugated cardboard in this case, which is going to be the pizza packaging. And there's creases which are marked by this red color, and this is where you're going to like use a metal ruler to actually fold it on the creases so that
mm.
it becomes a box when it's a 3D thing. So I have these artwork layers underneath this guy. I just put like a random color underneath so that I could see better. But let's go into this square thing here, like a square shape. Let's actually make a quick design over here. We can work with what? We can work with multiple designs here as well really quickly, but actually let's go in here. So
Fantastic.
you were saying something. I'm sorry to cut you.
No, 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 you're absolutely all right. I might throw in another question though.
Hmm.
So let's see, where does Anika get those cool mock-ups? Self-made or online resource?
They're a mix of both. Like, I did make a few mockups which I cannot show you, unfortunately, because it does have client work on it right now. But I can quickly show you how to make. Right after this, I'll go into making a quick mockup for like this image, so that you can see how I can overlay like the logo on this napkin right
Mhm.
here. And yeah, it's actually super easy, to be honest with you.
That sounds
Okay.
great.
Yeah, let's get this illustration. I feel like there can be a lot of things on the pizza box itself. And I want to use this illustration in this case. So, oh, I got a hand too. Hey, look at that.
Nice. Bonus hand.
Bonus hand. I can rotate it any way I want just to make it more interesting. I'm gonna place it over here and then create a clipping mask. I'm gonna get it out of the way, get these out of the way because we don't want these details. Let's select everything. I'm gonna deselect this, group this guy, bring this in the front so that I can make a clipping mask, and
Mhm.
then just right click and make clipping mask. And that's
Fantastic.
like the top of the box. I can go to libraries and quickly get like a white colored thing here. I'm gonna option click and drag just so that this is still vectors. I'm gonna get it out here. Um, let's actually
That's
place
a great
this.
point you made actually, to do option click and drag to make sure that is the vector version and not a.
Mhm.
I'm assuming it would put it in as a PNG file
Yep, that's
when you
also the case with
got
like
it.
stock assets if you get stock from Adobe
Mm,
stock. So if you just like license something from over here, which is actually a vector, but you want to use that, it's actually a great point to option click and drag in because that detects it as live shapes.
nice.
So yeah, we
Writing
have
that
this.
down for later for sure.
Yeah, we have some of these things that I already created, which is basically what information I want on this guy. Um, I want this to definitely be there, so I'm gonna add it here. Perhaps not here, somewhere on the side. Um, over here. Oh, no, it's not grouped. Hey, group your things, folks.
Name your layers, save your files, and group your
Yeah,
things.
for sure. And then I have this little graphic that I created. Maybe it's better suited somewhere else, but we have this right here. I'm going to use this just as reference just to keep time in check. So I'm going to go back to my layers panel and grab this over here. This is going to be on print, but this is basically, oh, 1 second. This is basically for print that we have this file, but for mockups, you don't really need the whole die line. You just need like the shapes that are going to go on top of the mockup. So in this case, it'll only be a square. But had this been a die line, I would have deleted this guy and changed the color of the artwork over here to the green that I wanted
Hmm.
it to be. So I have this green, and then the whole box would have been green. Actually, let's do that. Let's keep it this way. And then we will add this information that we had added here, or maybe like where do matters in this case.
Yeah.
Let's just add that and change the color. So I'm gonna go to libraries. You want everything to be legible, so make sure to use the colors that you actually intended to use. That's doing something weird. Let's actually just use the eyedropper. So we have the where do matters right here. Maybe I can place it somewhere around the box. Trying to think like a right placement for it.
Mm.
And I'm gonna turn it back just to see. Interesting. Hmm. It's kind of not legible, so maybe I'll turn it down just a little.
Could it be on the side of the box potentially? Or on the
It
other
could
side?
be. It could be. I actually wanted it to be over here because it's
Hmm.
like a slogan and I wanted it to be a part of the top of the box. So maybe it's something like this. I'm not sure. It's something that you can experiment with.
Mm.
But we can honestly just go ahead and work with this for now. And then you rotate this guy. You can align this back to where it was, and this is the top of the box. Just an example, just the first iteration. I'm not saying that this would be the top of the box, but it potentially could be.
Mm.
um, and then I'm going to group everything, secretly align this, and we are good to go. Now, one thing to remember is that these flaps actually open on the side. So there's like a top flap and like the backward flaps. So things might go upside down in this case, but you can easily rotate your canvas to understand how that works. But also, if you have like a real pizza box, because you ordered pizza after watching this, make sure to keep that box and lay it flat on the ground, and you can see how everything works.
It's
It's
great
really
to
by
have visual
application.
references.
Yeah, and it's really by application that you learn how everything works. So now I'm turning it down because it's gonna be folded in the sense that it's actually, I did it the other way, but it's gonna be folded in the sense that this one comes up and it gets folded up like this, and so
Hmm.
everything that's written might should be one should be, I don't know how to explain it. One should be like how you would see it on the screen right now, and one of them should be like the back label, which is like upside down. Um, let's keep it this, and maybe add something here. Maybe we can add like the details, like the phone number or like a website here, or like this guy here. I'm
Hmm.
gonna copy it and then get it here. So let's
Fantastic.
actually.
And just a quick heads up that
Mhm.
we do have about 15 minutes left. Time
Awesome.
does go quickly.
Yeah,
That's
let's
plenty of
actually.
time for us.
Yeah, let's get into it. Let's make so for right now I feel like this is all right. We can add a bunch of detail over here like stickers and stuff on top, but for now let's just go to pizza boxes and do this really quickly. So this is an Adobe stock image that I got that we can use, but because we have limited time, I'm not going to dive into it. I'm just going to use like a free pizza box mock-up that I got, or free pick, I think.
Mhm.
um, let's actually use this one. This one looks good. This may not be the final box that we use, but just for demonstration purposes, it's taking a bit of time. Oh, it's reading Photoshop format. Okay, there you go. Hey,
Oh,
you can see this.
excellent.
But
This is behind the scenes stuff, people.
behind the scenes stuff,
Yeah.
yeah, this is how long it takes usually. It's not that quick. Life's not easy. Hey, no, I'm kidding. And then we have this guy right here. Again, the same thing. We have the mock-up, we have the light, we have the background layer, we have some photo filters in this one, which is really fun. It's basically just
Fancy.
rectangles with blend modes on top of it. So you can see this is on color, this one is on subtract. So we have various blend modes that we can experiment with later on, but we have the box color here as well. So let's actually just go and choose the box color. I'm gonna use the hex code for this one for now. How's the chat going? What's going on in
Chat is
chat?
going well. We do have another question, and it's an interesting one because it's kind of a yes and no. So Hannah was wondering if you need to get permission in order to use social media logos. Um, I know that
Oh,
obviously if you're working with a brand, you would have the permission to use their logo
yep.
as you're sort of building the brand assets and everything like that. Um, but
Actually, you can use it as long as you don't modify it and you don't use it in a way that goes outside their brand guidelines. So it's a good way to
mm,
use, like, check the brand guidelines that the brands have, and usually you can find them on their website. So that's actually a good question.
yeah, it's really good. Some brands will actually have like a media kit or a brand package
Mm-hmm.
where
Yep.
they have made their logos and all promotion materials sort of the best that it can be and exactly how they want it,
Yep.
and then people like us can download it and use it in our work, and it is high res and crisp and nice.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just copy pasted the whole thing the same way we did. I'm just gonna save it. We have the background color, it's saving, and there you go. That's the
Ooh.
color that we have already. And I'm just gonna add the same green that we had here. I'm gonna copy it, use it as a background. We have some color, solid color. Use it here, save it, and it's saving. It's saving. Wait for it. Wait for it. Updating smart objects. Oh, hey,
Hey!
nice. We have that, and then we can go ahead and change this color as well. So I'm just gonna click on this guy, add a solid color on top, paste this, save it. The same thing happens, go back again, and this solid color got changed. We have the front side. So this is basically a very neat mock-up where everything is labeled perfectly. So you can just
Yeah,
go in and check it out, save it. I think I can send a link to this later. If you guys want to join the Discord or whatever, you can do that.
fantastic. Yeah.
There is a color issue going on here. Let's see. Okay, this should work. That's very dark. That's darker than I thought. Maybe this has a blend mode on it. Let's see. It does not have a blend mode on it. So this is like the bane working with like mockups that you have not treated, because you really don't know what's going on inside them. So sometimes it can be a little hard finding what's wrong with the mockup itself. So over
Mm.
here, as you can see, this color is really dark, but maybe it's the light that is causing it.
I think it could be
Um,
the lighting.
yeah, it could be the lighting. Let's actually leave it for 1 second and just work through what we have on the other side. So we actually want this over here. Let's lock this guy and get this color. Go to left edge. That's not it.
Left edge.
Left. Yeah, left edge.
That's Left Edge, coming to theaters in May. Um, we do have another great question, which
Mhm.
is from Stroofy. Do printers price work according to amount of ink used in your experience?
Oh yeah, it does, and also the number of colors you use.
Mm.
So it's always good to use like a limited color palette, and also you good to like discuss these things with your clients up like beforehand and see how that works, because it's not always a good talk when you have like a big budget.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it's always a good thing to actually consider these, and yes, it does matter.
It
um
does matter.
yeah, so we have some of these things going on. This is not really, I
Do you want to
don't
zoom
really
in
act.
a little bit on this one here?
Yeah, let's do that. We have these things going on. This has some
Lovely.
texture going on over here. We have the details on the side. Everything's really legible and looks good. So I feel like this might be a good way to show how that works. You can obviously go in and tweak the details, because it doesn't take this easy. It's not like a 5 minute job. You definitely have to go in and like change, but just to show you, like just to show the client the first look of how things are going to look like in the application of the logo, this is actually a great way to do that. Yeah, how much time do we have? Do we have time?
Yes, we have about, let's see if I can do maths. 5 plus 3, 7 minutes.
Yeah,
My thought was 8, but I can't do
5
maths
plus 2
clearly.
3 7 minutes.
Yeah, we've got a little over, let's say, 6 minutes now.
All right, so actually, you know what, let's actually quickly go do make a mock-up real quick. Oh, I know why it was taking time, but anyway, let's
I've
save
got so
this.
many individual files open, I see.
Yeah, and also because I recently downloaded like an older version of Photoshop, because there was this tool I wanted to use really badly. So I was like, let's just download this. But let's just go to Illustrator, get like a darker version. So as you can see, this is like a mock-up, which is basically the imagery that I want to use for the brand. So I have this little
Napkin?
handkerchief here. Yeah, the
Mhm.
napkin. And I want to like make the logo look like it's engraved into it, embroidered into it. So I'm going to grab like a darker color of the logo. So perhaps, where are you? Maybe this guy? I'm gonna grab just the primary logo, which is Ben's. Delete this, and I'm gonna outline this, and then expand again. All right, it's all grouped, making sure Command C so that it's copied on my clipboard. And then I'm just going to go here and maybe make a copy of this guy. So I'm going to press Command J because I'm on a Mac, but if you're on a Windows device, I'm just going to press Control J. I'm just going to save it just for fun and just in case I ruin anything. But I'm going to zoom in here and paste it as a smart object again so that it's lossless. I'm going to click OK, and as you can see, it's just as I copied, but I can go in and change the perspective of this. In this case, it's pretty straightforward. I don't need to go ahead and change the perspective. I'm just going to rotate it just a little bit. And since this is just already a smart object, it doesn't matter if I just scale it down or scale it back up. I see everyone's talking about foil napkins and
Yes, they
pizza
were
packaging.
talking about,
Hey,
yeah, the
no, no.
price of printing and things like that. But no, if you don't have to, I mean, financially wise, it does obviously cost extra
Yeah,
to put foil on everything. But it also makes things more difficult to recycle, and recycling is important. Um,
yeah.
but hello also to Hayden and anyone else new to the stream. We do have just around 5 minutes left. So if you
Awesome.
have any
Yeah, I'll just,
last minute questions, let us know.
yeah,
But
I'll quickly
yeah, cutting
get
it
to
down to the
this.
last slice today, I reckon.
Ah. But
How much did
as
you
you can
hate that
see,
one?
this looks very unnatural right now because it's just like just too sharp to be on a napkin. So I'm just gonna go over here and also first of all change the blend mode so that it gets some of that texture. If I really zoom in, you can see it's just like the text that I had. So I'm gonna change it to multiply real quick, and you can see like the texture, a little bit of the texture comes through. I can change the opacity, just turn it down to maybe like
Mm,
something like 84% over here, and I'm gonna do the same thing to the other one. Let's actually just work with this one because of
yeah,
time.
for
And
time.
I'm gonna turn this off. I have this guy. Maybe I just actually want to add like a filter to it. So the basic thing, that's not what I wanted to do. The basic thing that you have to remember is that how does it look in real life, and try to emulate that in this. So just gonna add some noise to it and see how that looks. We have some amount of noise. Let's actually turn that down just a little bit, and we will maybe make it this and then click on OK. We have the smart filter right here. Scale back up, kind of. But what if this had like a little bit, it's still too sharp, so what if it had like a blur to it? I'm gonna go ahead and click
Mm,
on blur, and immediately added the blur to it. It's
yeah.
still like it instantly looks a little more organic. But I reckon that's all the time we have for today, so
It is unfortunately all the time we have for today. It does fly past very quickly. I just want to highlight some excellent comments that we have. We have, if you like it, then you should have put a foil on it. From Finn, and then
nice.
also all the single colors, all the single colors.
Oh
So of
my
course
god,
had to shout that out. And that one last
that's
one was from Rob. We have two final questions, I reckon,
mhm.
before we have to say goodbye. So first, quick round. Does Ben's deliver worldwide?
Maybe.
Maybe. Great. Um, and then our last question for today is where does... No, that's not the last question. It is not design related, but favorite pizza for myself and yourself. And you go first.
I like a classic pepperoni and cheese.
Pepperoni and cheese, nice. And for me, it's a tie between margarita and Hawaiian because I do like pineapple on my pizza.
Oh yeah,
Um,
margarita too. I'm sorry, I take that back. I feel like margarita. If you can't do margarita right, you can't do pizza right.
exactly. Margarita is the sort of the test pizza that I always
Yeah,
get when I go to
yeah,
a new place.
absolutely.
But that is it for us today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I will bring us up on the big screen so we can see our faces, and turning that off. Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. This has been our first Let's Get Started series, and it was an honor to premiere it with you, Anika. Would you like to just let the people know where they can find you online before we head off?
Yeah, it's been a pleasure being here. Thank you so much for having me on. And if you guys want to follow more with my journey of live streaming and even otherwise follow my work, you can find me at ANIKAAGG on Instagram, and also the same on Behance. And it has all the other links. You can find me there and follow me.
Fantastic. Well, that is it for us. Come back next week for more streams from Adobe Live APAC. And in the meantime, maybe have some pizza. Try some pineapple on pizza. Maybe not. And that's it. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day,
Thanks.
Anika.
Bye.
See you soon. And yeah, that's it. Bye. Bye.